Hello everybody and welcome back to another video where I will be talking about F1 Fantasy, the best team to pick for Australia. I'm going to go through every F1 driver, go through a list of who's good to pick, who's bad to pick. I'll then do the same for the constructors. I'm then going to talk about my team, how I'm doing. I'm going to talk about the best team in my league, so remember to join that, link in the description. And I'll be talking about the worst team in my league. But before all of this, I wanted to talk about Giuseppe Cornerstone, the figure I've got in my videos. So basically, I got a comment from a viewer. Thank you very much for your comment. I like getting feedback because I always want to strive to make better videos and make videos that you guys like. And basically, he just said he wasn't really a fan of the character. And now, so I wanted to sort of ask everyone, put in the comments what you think, whether I should keep him or not, or does it distract you, does it annoy you? But I would also like to say that no matter what happens, I'm getting a camera midway through May, I believe, around then. So he will still be a part of my channel if people still want him there. But I'll have a camera for those sections where I'm normally in the living room with the character instead, going onwards from May, I believe. And then also, I want to talk about my Twitter, where I've made a Twitter account now, basically for any updates after this video about F1 Fantasy and just for F1 in general, as a few things can change in a week, and obviously they're not big enough to make a whole video about, so I'll just tweet about it and tell you guys what. And also, sometimes I do change my mind on transfers from this week to next week, and I'll tell you if I've changed my mind. I would also like to add, I'm going on holiday at the start of April, so sadly I will not be able to make an F1 Fantasy video for Australia. I might be able to if I have time, but I'd have to bring my laptop and my microphone, and I just don't know how well it would work. But don't hold your hopes for now, and if you see I haven't released a video for like 2 weeks, that's the reason. But anyways, yeah, like and subscribe, do all that good shit, and let's get into the video. Right, so as usual, we're going to start off with all of the drivers, and I've made sure it's percentage picked top to bottom, and we'll go through the top picked to the bottom picked, talk if they're good or bad options. So first up is Fernando Alonso. Must have in your team. Nothing's changed since the start of this season. He will be getting you constant podiums, constant top fives. Bring him in. Next up, Max Verstappen. 63% picked, 96 points this season. He's gone up 0.1 mil, and I'm going to make a video on changes to F1 Fantasy for this year, as I still haven't done that, just I haven't got around to it. It's going to be talking about the changes of price changes, the new rules. But yeah, Max Verstappen, great option. He's going to win the championship. He's going to get you at least first or second every race, like we saw. Even with problems with his gearbox, starting 15th, still managed to come second place in that race, and probably would have come first if he didn't have gearbox issues. So Max Verstappen, yes, he's 27.1 mil, but money well spent in my eyes. Next up, Sergio Perez, 44% picked, 64 points, 18.2 million. He's gone up 0.1 mil since Jeddah, and wow, I can't believe he's not picked as much as Verstappen and Alonso, purely because 64 points for 18 mil. Let me put this into perspective. Charles Leclerc, 3 million more. Carlos Sainz, only 1 million less, half the points. George Russell, half the points, 18.6 million. Lewis Hamilton, half the points, 23.7 million. It's a no-brainer when you see those stats. Perez will be getting top twos every single race, with Red Bull being this dominant this season. Get him in! I can't believe no one else, I can't believe you wouldn't have Perez in. It's such a steal. And yes, it takes up a lot of your money, but because of Aston Martin doing so well, you can do cutbacks and so many other drivers and still get these guys in your team. So Sergio Perez must have. Then onto Charles Leclerc, 33% picked, 16 points, 21.2 million, gone up 0.1 mil since Jeddah. Now I'm a bit confused how he's gone up in value. I'm guessing people have picked him more. I just don't see really why. I haven't really seen what he could do yet. Yeah, I know he started 12th and he did technically qualify second. Yeah, that Ferrari just doesn't seem quick enough, and when you can get Aston Martin drivers and Red Bull drivers for cheaper, there's just no real reason to get him. But I would say he's not a bad option to have if you want a differential. So I'm going to put him in the good pile, but right at the bottom of it, just because I still wouldn't go for him. But if you want to be a little bit different and not get the same points as everyone else, then good option. Then next up is Pierre Gasly, 31% picked, 26 points, 8.2 million. Again, price hasn't changed since Jeddah, and I'm very confused why 31% of people have picked Pierre Gasly. I mean, that Alpine doesn't look terrible, but it doesn't look like a consistent car. Maybe bottom end of the points in most races, if it's lucky. Yeah, he's got 26 points, but I think that's a bit deceiving. I think he's been a bit lucky for the start of the season. Like, where did he finish? So he finished 9th with quite a few overtaking points in Bahrain, and finished again 9th with a few overtake points. But I think if a few things went differently in that race, like Piastri not getting hit, losing a bit of his wing, Bottas, I don't know what happened to fucking Bottas, Albon looked like he could have got involved, Stroll getting involved, then he would have got a lot less points. I think it's very deceiving that. I'd put him in the no list. He's too expensive. You can get better drivers elsewhere for cheaper, which is going to sound funny because the next person I'm going to talk about is better, but doesn't look better considering his points. 29% picked, 3 points, 7.5 million, gone down 0.1 million in transfer value since Jeddah, is Lance Stroll. This is the perfect time to bring him in. He's just lost 0.1 mil, and I don't really get it. Are people transferring? I guess people are transferring him out, but he's just been unlucky the first 2 races. First race, he was still recovering from his hand, whatever the fuck he did to his hand in pre-season, I can't remember, but he had an accident. And then, where was he? He was like top 6, top 7, minding his own business. He would have got you plenty of points. Unluckily, he had a problem with his car, which meant he obviously got minus points for the race. But I just think long-term, Lance Stroll is the way to go. Yes, he's got 23 points less than Pierre Gasly, so someone who had Pierre Gasly as a Lance Stroll will be doing better at the minute. But if all goes well in Australia, Lance Stroll in one race will have about 10, 20 points more than him, just from one race. And that's all he needs. He just needs one good race. So Lance Stroll, very good option, especially with how cheap he is. He's at the tippy top of my choices. I don't like Lance Stroll as a driver himself, but my word, as a choice on F1 Fantasy, I love it. I fucking love it. Then next up, Carlos Sainz, 24% picked, 31 points this season, 17.2 million. Now, he's quite cheap for a top 3 car, but can I even say Ferrari's top 3? I'd say they're better than Mercedes. So again, I think he's a bit like Leclerc, but I still think he's a better option than Leclerc because he's cheaper. But yeah, it's the same option as Leclerc. Like, you could get better options elsewhere, but for the price, it's not that deep. So, Sainz, okay. Valtteri Bottas, 22%, 11 points, 7.7 million, 0.1 million drop in price. I'd steer clear of Valtteri. 7.7 million, he's just too expensive considering Stroll's cheaper, and then all of the midfield drivers are cheaper than that, apart from Pierre Gasly. So no real need to bring him in. Joe is literally just as good on points wise, doing even better, I should say, and he's almost half the price. There's no other reason. There's no real reasons to have Bottas unless you're like a Bottas fan, which is fair enough. Because at the end of the day, remember guys and gals, F1 Fantasy is about having fun. So make sure you do have fun, because obviously you can have the meta, but also just have a good time. It gives you something else to think about while watching the racing if it's a boring race. Next up, Nico Hulkenberg, 21% picked, 0 points, 4.1 million, dropped down 0.1 million in price. Again, his price is tempting, 4.1 million. Obviously, he's dropped 0.1 million. Unlucky, but I think he's doing fine. I personally wouldn't get him. I'd put him in a no list just because that Haas is just looking very mid at the minute. So I don't really see the appeal apart from the price, but I believe Logan Sargent would be a better option and he's cheaper. I also believe Guanyu would be a better option and he's only 0.7 million more. No, 0.8 million more, sorry. So yeah, no Nico Hulkenberg, bad list for me. George Russell, 21% picked. 34 points, 18.6 million. He's had a decent start to the season, nothing crazy considering that Mercedes doesn't look amazing. But again, I just wouldn't pick him because of the price and the Mercedes. And I'll quickly do Lewis Hamilton before I do Lando Norris because it's just the same thing. He's just too pricey for the Mercedes being where it is at the minute. Don't pick either of those two, they're on the no list. Then Lando Norris, 17% picked, 6 points, 11.1 million, too expensive, end of. Everyone knows that McLaren is dog shit. That's all I need to say. Right, next up, Zhou Guanyu, 16% pick, 21 points, 4.9 million. You guys know how I feel about this already when I was talking about Valtteri Bottas. So I think for the value, 4.9 million, he's getting constant points from overtakes and not getting knocked out of like Q3 and stuff. So bring him in. He's worth it. He can be your cheap driver, as I don't really think there's any other cheap drivers better than him for points-wise at the minute. But realistically, it's luck of the draw when it comes to the mid-table teams. So I will put Guanyu on the yes, but quickly, Nick De Vries, Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon, Esteban Ocon, Logan Sargent, Yuki Tsunoda and Oscar Piastri, I'll all talk about the same because they are all the same in my eyes. As in, if you pick one, it's luck of the draw who's going to get higher. Realistically, don't go for McLaren, that's obvious. But Haas, Williams, AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo, I generally don't know where they're going to finish every race. So have fun with that option. There is no real good or bad driver when they're all below 5 million, apart from Kevin Magnussen. Actually, steer clear of Kevin Magnussen and Esteban Ocon. But apart from that, everyone's a good option realistically. So yeah, that wraps up the drivers. Now let's head on to the constructors, where 73% picked, 75 points, 6.8 million. You know who it is. It's the one and only Aston Martin team. My favourite looking car at the minute. Oh, it's a beautiful car, isn't it? And Alonso's driving the socks off of that. My word. I know he's not going to win a third title, but I'm loving the meme at the minute where it's like the George Bush, where the guy's talking to George Bush and he's like, there's a new three-time world champion in F1. And he's like, oh yeah, what, Verstappen? And he's like, no, Fernando Alonso. Oh, it gives me goosebumps to think that could happen. But it is not, realistically. It would take a colossal fuck-up from Red Bull to somehow throw this already in the season, which is fucking ridiculous. But yeah, Aston Martin must have in your team. They're just so cheap and they get you so many points. Next up, Red Bull Racing, 55% picked, 173 points, 27.4 million, gone up 0.1 million since Jeddah. Again, they've got a hefty price tag, but you need all three of Verstappen, Perez and Red Bull Racing to be competitive this season in F1 Fantasy, because they've already got 173 points this season, yeah? Bear in mind, that's practically double the next best, which is Ferrari and Mercedes, which is just ridiculous. Nothing needs to be said about Red Bull. We all know you need to have Red Bull in your team. Next up, Ferrari, 27% picked, 90 points this season, 22.2 million, gone up 0.1 million. Again, I don't really understand why people are just picking Ferrari now. Aston Martin's still the better option, even though they got unlucky. So just be careful, because we know what Ferrari's like. They're going to fuck up. They always do. And also, I doubt Mercedes will be this slow for too long. They'll definitely catch up a little bit. And then it will probably be Aston Martin, Mercedes fighting for podiums. And I think Ferrari might get dropped a little bit throughout the season. So just be careful if you're picking Ferrari. I still think it's a good option for 22.2 million. Personally, I wouldn't get it though. But yeah, still in the good option. Then same thing with Mercedes. I put them in the bad option though, personally, because they're 3 million more than Ferrari, 2 million less than Red Bull, but half the points of Red Bull. So there's no real reason to pick Mercedes when you could either pick Ferrari, Red Bull or Aston Martin. And then, like the mid-table drivers, apart from McLaren, which is steer clear, and Alpine, which is steer clear because of their prices, Alfa Romeo, Haas, Williams and AlphaTauri, if you do pick these constructors, it's luck of the draw. I still wouldn't recommend picking them because you're going to get barely any points considering the top four teams. Aston Martin doing the worst at the minute just because they've been unlucky with Lance Stroll, 75 points compared to the next best, which is Alfa Romeo with 38 points. It's just such a massive drop off, and considering Aston Martin is so cheap, there's no real reason not to get them instead of one of those cars. So yeah, that ends this section of the video. Now I'll show you what my team is looking like for Australia, and we'll talk about just how my team's been doing so far. Right, so this is my team for Australia. Verstappen, Alonso, Stroll, Zhou, Perez, Red Bull and Aston Martin. Now, I've still got my 2 free transfers, but I doubt I'll be making any. But if I do, I'll be saying it on my Twitter for anyone to see what I've changed. But unless one of them gets a grid penalty within the next week, I don't see anything changing for now. Or unless I go into practice and see Red Bull look like they're going to have a stinker somehow, then I would do something like that. Or say Alfa Romeo are going to have a stinker, then I quickly take out Zhou and get in someone else who looks like they've got a more competitive car for Australia. So I'll keep you guys updated, but I don't think I'm making any changes for now. Then let's go on to the league. Thank you all so much for joining it. At the minute, we got 52 teams in it at the minute. I'm sitting 36th. I'm not having the best start because of Stroll and Leclerc DNFs, which was very unlucky, but I'm still feeling good about this season. I've not dropped enough points to be already out of contention for being top 5% of all teams. So it's still possible, but yeah. Anyway, let's get on to top driver of the weekend. Now I'm going to do 2 because some people have done extra DRS 3 times. And yes, of course, well done. I'm happy you guys came first. But I feel like also it's just, I need to talk about a driver who hasn't used any chips as well, to see which is the best team for that weekend. Right, so first off, we'll look at Ferrari. Nice name. Basically, 399 total points this weekend. 3 times on Max Verstappen. Amazing choice. Very lucky for you considering he qualified 15th, but masterclass. I'm not going to even say it's lucky. I'm going to say that's a tactical masterclass from you there. So well done on that. Your team looks amazing. Personally, I'd get rid of Gasly and Hulkenberg on your free transfers and bring in Stroll for Gasly, and you could look really good for the rest of the season. And then on to a team that might have used a chip but didn't use a chip for this weekend, and it's the team I use. Well done. That's the perfect team you want. Take a good hard look at it, ladies and gentlemen. That's the team you want to see. Right, then on to the worst team in the league, and I hate to do this part, but I like to see it as motivating whoever's bottom to get better throughout the season and, you know, just gain some experience. And now, yes, it's quite unlucky as you did join the league, I'm guessing late, and only made your team for Jeddah because your team didn't actually do that bad. It's not the worst team I've ever seen. Personally, again, I'd get rid of Ferrari and Bottas and bring in Red Bull. You can, but I don't think you've got enough money. Actually, with 2.5 million in the bank, maybe potentially possible. But yeah, Bottas for Stroll. Wouldn't have Hulkenberg as well, but again, it's a punt in the midfield, a low-value driver. So yeah, not a terrible team, but yeah, get rid of Bottas. Try to get that Ferrari to Red Bull. Leclerc's not a terrible option, but again, I would change it to Perez or Sainz. But yeah, good start. I don't think you'll be bottom for long, so carry on doing well. RMS Red Bull Racing. And yeah, that about concludes this episode of F1 Fantasy. Hope you all enjoyed. Leave your comments down below of anything you want me to make videos about, as I will make a video about it if I like the idea. But yeah, love you all and see you later.